It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago. And here in New York City, it's 7 p.m. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog DeCipio. Welcome again to What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. I'm joined tonight, as I am each and every week, by the mouth of the South herself, Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman. How you doing, Amelia?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. What'd you do for fun today?
Nothing. Just work.
I gotta get you out. I really gotta get you out of there.
How do you know when you're finished?
Right?
When you're doing nothing, how do you know when you're finished?
Right? Actually, I'm reading a good book right here. See?
It's an amazing book.
I know that. I know. I haven't got my copy.
You haven't got your copy?
I haven't got my copy.
Oh, get your coffee, brother.
Oh, well, you know what? I can pull up the ebook version.
There you go.
There you go. We all got a cup here.
No, copy. Here's copy.
Oh, copy. It's the coffee. I'm all fucked up.
I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
See where my head is at. I'm going right for the cup.
Can I go back to see?
Well, yeah,
crazy.
Dan,
I brought my own book.
Copy tonight.
Yeah.
Really?
No,
I haven't got one with me.
For you, brother.
I haven't got one with me.
Well, let me introduce everybody. Tonight, the
But
return
here it is.
Dan Eamer.
Hey.
Dan is a
There's the copy, the ebook copy.
beautiful. Dan is a returning guest on the show. He is one of our favorite people.
Mm-hmm.
He is. Let me tell you a little bit about Dan Eamer, and you probably already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway because that's my job and that's what I'm supposed to do.
How much is true?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a fun night tonight. I should.
This should be a beer then? Is that it?
Yeah.
There you go. Dan Eamer is a certified and credentialed fitness, exercise, and strength conditioning coach, as well as holds a Bachelor of Science from the Concordia University in Montreal. Dan had lofty goals as a young 16-year-old kid. Writing a novel was near the top of a very long list he had. And after publishing 2 fitness books, Dan tried his hand at a real novel. Well, his first thriller, The Satan Gene, was custom made for conspiracy kooks like us. Interwoven with secret codes, Catholic intrigue, and tantalizing blends of fact and fiction, The Satan Gene will make even the most ardent conspiracy skeptics question everything they think they know. Is it real, or is it a figment of a great writer's imagination? That's the question you'll ask. Author Dan Eamer makes a return to the show, talking up his epic, and we do mean epic, novel, The Satan Gene. It's a book I described as the DaVinci Code on steroids, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Well, it really is. You have to admit.
It is.
It really is. Ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome back Dan Eamer?
Yes, welcome back.
Hello.
Yes.
A lot of people over there.
Yes. I brought them in from outside.
Yeah.
Dan, how the hell are you, brother?
Doing pretty good.
Doing
pretty good. Keeping busy. Not sitting on my hands and doing nothing.
Well, good. Good. And I would expect you to get busy doing something for crying out loud. At least I hope so. Anyway, writing another book would be one of them.
It's happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
I'm actually into it right now. I do a little bit every day. I do some research, a lot of reading, note taking, and scene writing. So Gareth Blackwell will definitely be making a return to the printed page.
Absolutely.
As to when, I don't know. But it's sooner than later then.
I should tell people it took Dan 27 years to write this book. It seemed like it took you 2.5 years, you said, right?
It was 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah. But of that, I would say cumulative, it was about 3 years of research on and off.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest was basically putting it all together.
Yeah.
So I actually finished it, polished it off, and edited and brought everything down to what you've got right there during COVID. Yeah. Because we were all locked down, so I had nothing else to do apart from that. So I took off my trainer hat and put on my author hat.
Yeah.
And
I should tell people that this book, Dan, is 558 pages, and it's a pretty massive work. I will tell you the research that went into this is you are either the world's greatest researcher or you have a psychic gift that nobody knows about, because some of the stuff that I came across in this book is happening now.
Yeah.
A lot of it is happening.
One of the reasons why I didn't want to wait for an agent or a traditional publisher, because I figured I can go quite a long ways before somebody said, yeah, we'll take it on. So I decided to go the independent route because it was very timely information. And I didn't want to pass, to sort of like have it skip over and go into, something else that wasn't pertinent to today's news and headlines. Right. So there it is. It had to come out.
Yeah. One of the things, as I got, the first time around, we just had so much fun talking to you. We hardly ever talked about the book, like the inner guts of the book. We kind of skirted around it, but tonight we're going to get into the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and that hour went by fast.
Yeah, well, we're going to go a little longer tonight if you want.
All right, I'm cool with that.
We have time to do that. Here's the thing. One of the things I love the fact that you found a woman to be the catalyst for evil. Abriana.
Yeah, don't sell the punch.
We're not going to give away too much of that.
Trust me when I tell you, I'm not giving anything away. You're going to find out soon enough that Abriana is an interesting character, to say the least. But I love the fact that you used a woman to do certain things that you would never expect a woman to do. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that. The other thing is your knowledge of the ancient texts, the ancient scripts, as it were. Where did you garner that knowledge from in your research? Because some of this stuff isn't like readily available.
No, that was
I tried to search it out.
Yeah, some of the stuff is very obscure. I had to dig a lot. I had to dig tremendously for a lot of the information. I wouldn't call it knowledge as opposed to just learnings that I picked up along the way. Mind you, I mean, if you ask me any theological question right now, I'd probably be like off base completely, because I'm not the expert. It's the Gareth Blackwell of the book who's the expert. I mean, you have to ask him if he existed.
Well, that's an interesting. That's an absolutely stellar segue, because the way you just phrased that is an interesting juxtaposition. We've had authors here before, and they often speak in third person about their character, almost as if it's their alter ego. So first of all, how was Gareth Blackwell born? Where did you give him life at?
That's a really good question, because there wasn't any one defining moment where that character sort of like manifested himself. It was sort of like along the way I started adding pieces to the character, and the name changed, I think, 3 times before it actually became what it is now.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What would now that Gareth is the star of the book? But what would the name have been had you not chosen Gareth Blackwell?
I was looking at Connor as a first name. I can't remember what the last name was supposed to be, but I knew I wanted a nickname in there because it added more personality to the character.
Yeah.
So with a Blackwell, I said, well, Blackie, it's kind of cute. That can work. And so that was really the reasoning behind that particular name. And I wanted something a little bit more exotic, something that, it has a bit of a Celtic twist to it as well, right? He sounds a little bit more Scottish than, or Irish or whatever.
Yeah.
And seeing as he lives in Boston and there's a big contingency of Irish down there.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah. I figured it would fit.
I asked you that question for a reason. I had the chance to interview actor Bob Denver, who we all remember from Gilligan's Island.
Wow.
And
I asked, I loved him. He was a great guy. We were friends as well. And I asked Bob, I said, the show was called Gilligan's Island, but it almost wasn't called Gilligan's Island. It was almost called Flanagan's Island. I said, because I said to him, what would the name have been if it wasn't Gilligan? He said it was going to be Flanagan's Island. And I said to him, what was Flanagan's first name? Or in your case, Gilligan, what was the first name of the character? He said, they never used it, but it was going to be Willie Gilligan. For Gilligan, don't ask me how. It would have made more sense, Willie Flanagan, because it's Irish.
Right.
I don't know how to get Willie and Gilligan, but Willie Flanagan would have worked. And it's interesting because he said that the director Sherwood Schwartz, who wrote the screenplay, went through 5 or 6 different drafts. So here's my question to you: how many drafts did you go through before you got what I'm holding in my hand?
Okay, I went through so many that to the point that I don't know how many I went through.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I guess that's
it's write and save and write and save and write and save. So I must have like about 120 versions of it
wow.
kicking around.
Wow.
Yeah. And even then, when I was going into final drafts or whatever, I kept thinking it was the final draft, and it ended up by not being the final draft. So I think I had like 15 final drafts.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a big learning curve and a tremendous, writing experience.
That's remarkable. We've had writers on the show. Emil, our friends Tamara Thorne,
yes,
Alistair Cross. We've had these people on the show. It's just remarkable the process that you writers go through. I say you writers, including you in there, Dan, because it really is. If you think about the work that goes into a book, it's very painstaking because an author loves the words and an author wants to keep everything. No author ever wants to edit out. They always want to edit in. And if you do that, you've got something that looks like the New York phone directory.
Yeah, it was huge at the beginning because there was about it's a little over 100, or it's about 104,000 words right now. And at the time, there was about 25,000 more in there.
Oh my God!
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So I had to really sharpen my knife and just start carving stuff out, and it was a painful process. It was a difficult process. It was like, okay, this is a great scene, but it doesn't drive the story forward. So do I really need it, or can I use it so I put it in the file on the side for some other book along the way. So these things will come back. I mean, they're not wasted, but they were not necessarily elements that were interesting. They were fun. They were, like exciting, but they weren't going to drive the story forward. It was almost like going off on a tangent.
Yeah.
And it would have been pretty big to try and bring the ship back. So I said, okay, let's lean it up a bit, keep the critical stuff, and save the other stuff for book 2, 3, 4, whatever.
It plays out beautifully. Amelia.
Yes.
You are up the bat in the big camera.
Oh,
questions for our friend Dan Eamer.
That's a big camera. No,
that's a big camera.
I know, right? Now, I was looking through the book, and you had mentioned in there about the newborns that were going to be, certain things about the genetics and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically now, I see that the men are becoming more masculine. Did you foresee that before you even wrote in the book about that? Because that's what's happening now.
Not at all. That's technology that is evolving at the speed of light right now. So I might even be just a little bit behind the curve with it at this point. But a lot of the stuff that I wrote was science-backed. There was a lot of research done into genetics and radiogenetics and stuff like that to create the weapon in question. And one of the things that it was able to do was modify the human genome permanently, and that it could be transferred to subsequent generations and basically rewrite the DNA of human beings. And there it is. It's accelerated evolution, is what it is, with a military application. But did I see it going anywhere else in terms of hypermasculinity or whatever? No, that was not. That was not there for me. Thanks for the curveball.
Exactly. Speaking of curveball, let me throw one at you.
Uh-oh.
All right.
One of the characters, one of the pivotal characters in the book is Torgon. I'm not going to give too much away, but Torgon he's in possession of a particular ancient manuscript, an old book, and I want to read a passage, and then we'll talk about it. Torgon was struggling with the priest's declaration, but I found the book. You poor soul. We put that book, and we put that particular Bible in every room of this institute as part of our conditioning program for facilitating asset recruitment. I'm going to talk about that. You know where I'm going with it. You're already smiling.
I guess.
Oh, he's like, uh-oh.
I hope.
The priest said, with the slow shake of his head, as he laid the foundation for the manipulation he was about to perform. It is easy to deceive creatures like this when, turn the page, when they have been reduced to nothing and are almost pleading for anything that could save them. Where have we heard that recently? You did not find this particular Bible. It found you. Now, let us talk. Let us talk about that passage, Dan Eamer. Again, that's something we've seen happen in history. People that of a certain age will remember many years ago, of my age and certainly your age, Dan, we remember a group called the Gideons that used to play. Yeah.
I'll defer to you on that one because I'm not sure where they fit in, but
okay. But the Gideons used to place Bibles in every hotel and motel room in the United States.
Okay.
I don't know if they did that in Canada, but it explains why there's so many damn Catholics here that don't know the Bible. Here's the thing, though. But the question I have is as potent now and relevant now as it was back then. The Gideons also were a group that that organization manipulated people, especially the people that were downtrodden, people that were in need of help, the helpless, many of them poor, and they used their organization to brainwash otherwise really decent people into believing they're a load of horse shit. Okay? And I'm not bashing, the Bible itself because I'm a spiritual person. I'm not religious at all, but I am spiritual. And so the question has to be asked, what did you know and when did you know it about what's happening now? Because we're seeing that now.
I didn't.
Really?
I didn't. I made it up.
Can I ask you a question? And I'm going to get a little heavy with you here.
Yeah.
Were you guided spiritually by any force, call it God or whatever, higher power?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was something that was definitely helping me out along the way. And I think we alluded to this the last time we spoke in the previous interview, but there were a lot of moments that, I wasn't sure about things. I didn't know how the storyline was going to go. There were a lot of question marks along the way. And I just threw it up to the universe and I said, okay, you know what, you work on it, come back to me with the answer and I'll work on something else in the meantime. And there were a tremendous number of moments along the way where my answers came in weird ways. I'd be reading another book, or I'd be watching a television program, or listening to the news, or talking to somebody, a client, and all of a sudden, bam, it would just hit me. Oh my God, I got my answer. And so I started believing that there was an outside force that was definitely helping in this process, to the point that I now believe it's part of my process of creation. That if I hit a roadblock, or if something's not working, I just let it go. Let the universe take care of it. You can higher consciousness, or you can say subconsciousness if you want. But I let that other power take care of it, and you get back to me when you got the answer.
Right.
And that liberates me a lot. So from that point of view, I guess you can say, yeah, I've got an outside force that's working to help me, put the story together. And it's happening again, with the one I'm working on right now.
It's interesting. I've asked people that have written theological books. I've actually written 2. My first book was called Psychic Fingerprints: A Life's Manifesto. And my second one was it was called Stay Tuned. It was the psychic realm from a theological perspective.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that one's no longer available, but I'm thinking of reprinting it. Here's the interesting thing, though, that I found. I found myself, much like you in your process, I found myself guided by this energy and just letting it go. You lead, I'll follow where you take me. And I had that book done in 6 months.
Wow. You want to write my second one?
Well, maybe, I'll give
you'll be my outside force. I'll transfer to you. You take care of it, okay?
I'll give it a shot. I'm pretty good, I'm pretty good at words, but I don't have Dan Eamer patience, though, for the 105,000 words. What I do want to do, though, is talk to you about some of the interesting catalysts that you use in the book. I'm going to refer to where Gareth Blackwell is. He's kind of like at the point now where he's starting to ask questions of a technical nature. And he asked the question, wait a second, what's a vector? Blackwell said. Morgan crossed his arms. It's the scientific term that basically means a virus. Okay, so that's the catalyst. Then here's what happens. He says to Gareth Blackwell, we've been using this kind of tech for a couple of years now to perform gene editing of crops and insect via specialized viruses called horizontal environmental gene alteration agents. Blackwell looked at the quantum biologist. So that's how the synthetic DNA strands would end up permanently in the human population. Stop right there. This was at a time you're writing this, we're smack in the middle of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
How did that impact your not only writing of this passage, but coming up with a name to call it? Where did let's see, they're calling it the Hegia. It's HEGAA, or horizontal environmental gene alteration agent.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to call it Hegia.
Okay.
Because I like that name. So how did that happen?
Again, I read a lot of research on DNA modifications. I read a lot of research on viral infections. I mean, I don't know if the CIA, FBI, CSIS, or whatever have been monitoring me for the last few years, because a lot of the searches that I was doing, I said, somebody's got to be picking up on this and thinking I'm setting up a, some kind of like a intense viral agent that I'm going to attack people with. But no, it was I needed to sort of like talk the jargon that is used in that industry and use the real terms.
Oh,
because again, I mean, I wanted this novel to be very realistic, and I can't just throw out terms or make up terms. I wanted it to be very, very much in line with the jargon of those types of people and that type of, milieu or scientific milieu. So I was looking for technical terms. I was looking for stuff that was, that you can confirm, that you can go on the internet and find it, and it's backed up. So I couldn't do that by making stuff up. I mean, I had to use the real stuff. So I was into a lot of reading on viral infections and to get back to the initial part of the question, no, the coronavirus, it didn't affect the way I was going to write it, only because all that stuff had been written before. And if anything, it just corroborated what I was saying. If the only thing it did, however, was make me a little bit more anxious to get the book published. Because it's sort of like the timing.
Yeah,
when we're talking about viruses.
I absolutely understand. Oh my God, do I understand?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
it's like strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So that was that was a big push forward, a very strong driving force to get the book done. And I found it very ironic that I was writing this stuff at the end, right in the middle of a viral attack. Basically, we can talk about the conspiracy theories about that till the cows come home. So I was saying I'm right in the middle of something like that, and it's happening live around me, possibly. You don't know if it's for sure, but But it was that particular moment that I said, okay, I've got to get it out, because I might miss the bus in terms of the timeliness of the
tell you what, my brother, your timing was perfect.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant timing. I want to follow up on that. So now Gareth Blackwell knows that this is how they're doing things. So Adriana replies, she goes, that's the easiest part of the project. A mixture of pride and shame playing across her face, So she says, the method of delivery that Ashcroft proposed during their 1 hour marathon brainstorming session was a technical challenge, but elegantly simple. We would bioengineer a new and extremely contagious coronavirus.
That's the only time. That's the only time I said coronavirus in there.
Yeah.
Because that was the only term I changed to make it more in line with the current, current events. Exactly.
And
that's the only one.
Speaking of current, I got news for you, brother. Speaking of current, you may have given them an idea. They may be listening to you. Because I'll tell you what. No, for
I
real.
hope not.
I'm being very serious. We will bioengineer a new and extremely contagious coronavirus with its own unique DNA. That's, by the way, is real. It's happening now.
It is.
And we're going to tell you about it. The coronavirus is on DNA and a cross strain with the permanent infectious characteristics of another virus. Then we would embed that unique DNA strand onto the DNA strand payload into it. In other words, so they have this this virus cocktail, we'll call it, right? Now they have to deliver it into the population. Well, what better way than the air, the water, hand-to-hand contact, any way you can.
Oh, yes.
There's a new strain of coronavirus some time ago. Well, not some time ago, but in the last year, 6 months to a year, that they had trouble getting rid of. And they called it, remember, Amelia, what was the name they gave that?
Oh, gosh, what was it? There was a different name to it. I know that was.
They gave it a different name. It was called, oh, man. Apex or APEC or something like that. They called it the Apex strain or something like that. Some name like that. That's what they called it here anyway. Yeah, but there was this strain of coronavirus called Apex. And what they basically done was they dropped it from the air. It's airborne in the truest sense. It just floats and you breathe it, and it gets on flowers and plants and you breathe it. And it's elegantly simple, as evil Adriana says.
Yeah.
But you had that idea
before coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's watching who, brother. It's interesting. one of the other things is each desired outcome is signal, traffic, and host DNA specific. Once an individual is marked, and I like the word marked, we determine an outcome and send a code frequency to burst the Satan gene DNA strand. It in turn proceeds to carry out the specific order in the target's body. Simple as that. And this was at a time, again, prior to the full-on outbreak of COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm not responsible.
No, I'm not
Right.
saying
He's
you
not
are.
responsible for that, people. Right?
No, I'm not saying you are. No, but please, I'm not.
No,
Certainly
this is
not.
fiction.
But I'm saying that's absolutely, pardon
Yeah.
my language, but it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's
You
dead
know?
on right there. Yeah.
It's brilliant in an evil, twisted, sadistic sort of way,
Yes.
but it's brilliant
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Yeah.
Especially when a writer's got, subject matter like this, you can go crazy with stuff like this.
Oh, absolutely.
Look what Dan Brown did with the DaVinci Code. I think he was missing out though because he didn't have Dan Eamer as a partner.
Right. Just like, like he writes here, like the Middle East, they need oil and gas reserves. And why not, put the, this illness or disease out there?
Well, I'll tell you what, Amelia,
plain and
why don't
simple.
you ask your, go ahead,
Right?
follow up on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, just like the Middle East, they need oil and gas reserves. And why not put this little disease out there just to confuse people or to put it in plain sight, as they say, or to hide, do a cover up while they do the little business out there, correct?
There's a lot of conspiracy theory in that, eh? So the short answer is I don't know. I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. I think we're limited by our imagination. So it could be yes, but that'd be more of a question for somebody a little bit higher up than I'm placed.
I'll defer the question to Dan.
Well, I mean, they do a lot of the stuff. To me, to be honest with you, the conspiracy person in me, they raise the gas prices because they're up to something. That's just a little...
Yeah, they're up to making money.
Well,
absolutely. Well,
that
you know
also
what though,
too.
Amelia, let me jump in here and I'm going to give it right back to you. But you know what, Dan, she does bring up something important. In real life, we know that there were certainly distractions. Coronavirus was a huge distraction.
Big one.
While other, nefarious government entities, particularly United States government, because we lead the world in corruption like none other, no other country leads the world in corruption like we do. And I'm sorry to say that, folks, but it's the truth.
It is.
It saddens me to say that because we used to be a great country. Now we fucking suck.
Yes.
But she brings up a point. In the book, there's one thing that I noticed that you didn't do. You didn't take advantage of distractions per se. And if you did, and I'm missing it, explain what distraction you might have utilized in the book.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't use any big distractions, only because the storyline, well, the story was happening sort of like behind the scenes. It's a covert operation.
Right.
So it didn't require anything outside to distract people from what's going on.
Yeah.
It was already covert. So, I mean, nobody was knowing what was going on. It was the behind the scenes stuff that's being done while somebody else is putting out a distraction,
Amelia,
but that might be in book two.
No, you know what, Amelia? Dan
you might be surprised on book 2 because that does come into play a little bit more.
Dan brings up a valid point, Mill.
Yes.
Because you and I we're in the population. We're seeing the results of the nefarious activity.
Correct.
Dan is writing from within the
he's like behind the scenes person.
The nefarious infrastructure.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why, again, I'm reading it from a different perspective, but
correct.
if I put my conspiracy hat on, I can see it for sure.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I thought, that's when read that passage, he's correct right there, where the Middle East and everything needs oil and the gas reserves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Neil. I'll turn it back over to you guys. I promised.
No, that's fine. It's just that, when I saw that right there, he's correct in that part, because they're wanting that. And of course, they're going to use every little power that they can to take away anything that they've developed.
Oh, sure.
And they're going to do everything to give it to the highest bidder or steal it from the highest bidder.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Interesting point, in fact.
They don't want the United States to have it.
Dan, was one of the things that I never, and I couldn't, it's just such a simple question. I could have asked you the last time, but I didn't. Are you a conspiracy theorist?
That is a good question. No, I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist. Even though I write to that particular population. Okay.
And
but I am a firm believer that there are probably weird, nefarious things going on behind the scenes that we don't know of, in the mainstream, or, it's very difficult. It's very, there's so much going on now. There are so many pieces on the board moving at the same time that it's very difficult to figure out what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I'm more of I'd like to say more of an investigator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, to sort of dig in.
I'm sorry. Would you consider yourself an investigative journalist?
It had certainly had feelings of that along the way. There was some stuff that I was reading. I'm like, oh my God, do we have hope for humanity? Because I was finding out, certain things, and it was almost like a bit of a dark period in that research. Yeah. Because I was like, okay, well, you know what, humanity is, let's put it this way, it's screwed, because we have so many bad things going on, or we're suspecting so many bad things are going on. Yeah. That how is the power of good going to find a way of overcoming all of this stuff? Yeah. Sure. So. For me, I definitely had a feeling of that along the way. There was an underlying, let's say, a little theme of exposing stuff that I wanted to sort of like explore with the story, and bring to light certain things that maybe people never knew, or so. Yeah.
Oh, brother,
it's full of it, huh? It's full of little moments.
Oh my God, can I help you out on your next one? Oh my God.
He wanted to bring it to in a gentle way.
Don't even. I'm serious, bro. You don't even know. Holy shit. I am up against a hard break, Dan. Amelia, we will be right back after this word from Shopify.
Jess wanted to start a business when something surprising happened.
Today, I'm going to teach you how to crochet.
She started crocheting, like a lot. And her friends noticed.
Jess, you need to sell those.
So she signed up for Shopify and started building her business.
Yes, I love that.
And after a lot of hard work, this happened.
Oh my gosh, I just made my first sale!
You see, every day, hundreds of businesses get their first sale on Shopify.
We got a ding!
And the next could be you. So when you're ready to bring your idea to life
and become your own boss,
build it on Shopify.
Do you have sweaty balls or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with its patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Enter promo code Wrestling Future for a generous 20% discount. That's enter Wrestling Future for a 20% discount. Manscaped.com and Wrestling with the Future, going balls to the walls with Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0. Your balls will thank you, and so will we. We are back, and you are watching America's Best Popcats. What's the Buzz? And tonight, the return of Dan Eamer. Dan, we are back from break. Amelia,
Yes.
you are up with question number 1 on part 2. Go ahead, kid.
Yes. I noticed that you had used some symbols in there too, as well, from like either the Catholic Church and everything like that. And those had me watching my Supernatural again, thinking, wait a minute, I can solve some of these, but then I couldn't remember some of them. And you did a lot of research on that as well, that I see, and some angelic codes that I still cannot believe where you got that from.
Yeah, that's yeah. I wanted the message to be coded so that it was very difficult for anybody to read it, apart from somebody who was well versed in that kind of stuff. And Blackwell, being an expert in all this theology, religion, and symbolism and stuff like that, amateur expert, but still nonetheless an expert. I wanted to give him a little bit of a challenge as to be able to decipher this stuff without anybody else knowing about it. So when I was and seeing a Saint Michael archangel, Saint Michael is the I said, well, why not have something angel oriented? And that's I did a search and that came up, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
Oh, yeah.
So I used that.
That's beautiful. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be looking at this.
Angelic script, yeah, or celestial script.
Yes,
I'm fascinated by angelic script because it's nobody knows how far back it goes, and some people claim it goes back. Well, yeah, some people claim it literally goes back to the very beginning of time. There are places on the globe right now that contain genuine angelic script. Don't know how it got there.
Yeah.
Don't know who put it there. In many cases, don't know how to decipher it or what it means. But you have to remember, and I always say this to people whenever I get into one of these discussions, and we see pictures of angels, or we'll see pictures of Jesus, or what, God, quote, God may or may not look like.
Right.
You have to remember something. The people back in that time didn't verbalize very well, but they all drew. They all wrote stuff down in art form. That's in a lot of cases, that's how they spoke, in pictures. So when I see a picture of an angel that has wings, well, somebody saw that somewhere.
Yes.
And they drew what they saw. Or if I see a cave sketch or a carving on a cave wall of something that looks outer worldly, well, somebody saw that as well.
Right.
But angelic script is all around us. We just have to know where to look for it. I believe that. And I believe that angelic script is as current as it is ancient. How did you utilize, Dan, the element of angelic script into weaving it into the story and having it make sense for the reader?
It's a throwover from a previous idea that I had, but it was so cute I decided to leave it there. Because originally most of the clues were going to be associated with zodiac symbols, but the actual zodiacs in the sky, the constellations. And when I was looking at the angelic script, and I said it almost looks like little constellations, I said, well, there's a good tie in there. But then I sort of like deviated from the constellation thing, because at some point along the way it was just getting too big, too heavy. It wasn't working, so I decided to put that part aside. But the angelic script, I said, it's cute enough, it's original enough, let's leave it there and just move on. So that's basically where it came from.
Interesting. Your use of certain symbology in the book, for example, what they used to call the Celtic sun, It's a sphere with rays coming out of it. And then in the center of it has 3 dots. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The name that was given to that ages ago was called the Celtic Sun.
Yes.
What name did you give to that, Dan?
I didn't.
That's why I asked you, because it doesn't have a name.
It doesn't have a name. It's
That's precisely why I asked you.
Yeah. No, it was it was a bit of the symbol of the Jesuits, right? So I decided to use a part of that with something else to sort of like give it a completely unique look to Sicarius's character. So
it's interesting that you mentioned the Jesuits. I want to follow up with that right now. Those of you who do not know and are not versed in Catholicism, the Jesuits are what we Catholics like to refer to as God's hit squad. They are they're all mercenaries that have become priests, and they carry out the dirty work of the Vatican. I mean, tell me if I'm lying, Dan.
From what I've read, there's a military
very much
to them.
so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
They carry out the Vatican's dirty work, and very publicly sometimes, very publicly. I'm curious if you have been either contacted by or referred by the Jesuits in any way, shape, or form. You certainly didn't disparage them in the book, but you didn't do them any favors either.
Well, I look on it as being something like the CIA. I mean, how many times have they been disparaged in movies and books? But I mean, it still doesn't take away from what they're doing, or trying to do. The same thing with the FBI. The same thing with any military or covert group like that. So they're basically used in a storyline, but I mean it's fictitious. I mean it's it's not saying they do this.
Right. Well, the
or
FBI.
I'm gonna say this. I hope they don't do this.
Well, the FBI is in hot water right now, anyway. So.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of stories over the years, evidently, about those things. But I mean, in the end, they're being used fictitiously in movies, other books, spy novels, or whatever. So for me, it's sort of like, well, I'll put it in there, but there's nothing in there, like you said, to disparage.
Right.
It's basically used for a literary effect as opposed to trying to smear. It's not a smear campaign.
Right. Well, you took a literary license with it, which every author does and absolutely have the right to. Something you wrote about, frighteningly that you wrote about, has come to pass. In fact, this year, came to pass in February of 2023. And you're not even going to believe it, folks, when I tell you, but I'm not even, I shit you not, patent protected DNA. Dan Eamer wrote about it years ago in this incredible book, chapter 34 of the Satan Gene, right there on the first page of chapter 34. The moment your personal DNA structure is modified with a permanently embedded government-designed military application, say that one fast, part of your DNA will be patent protected. And by the way, yes, it's happening now. It makes it such that the state will own part of you from that point forward. Well, guess what, folks? It's already happened in the United States of America.
Yes.
The former United States of America, I should say. This is no longer the United States. This is fucking anarchy at its best. You are now property of the state. And that's what the NWO and the Illuminati and the Bilderbergs and the Council of Nine and the Committee of 300, that's what they want you to do. They want you to be their slave. And Dan Eamer writes about this so brilliantly, so beautifully in the book, The Satan Gene. Satan, by the way, in the book, we should tell people, is both literal and metaphorical. And that's all I'm going to say to folks. I want you to buy this book, and if you can't afford it, I'll fucking buy it for you. It's that good.
Yeah, and the best thing to do is hold the book in your hands. Turn the page. That's the best thing to do.
And buy the book. Don't get the Kindle version like Dan has. Don't get the cheapie because he didn't spend no money on this book.
I bought my own book.
Yeah, did you? Good.
I really did. I had to test it. See,
there you go.
You see, yeah, I had to test it out. So yeah, I bought my own.
Nothing better though than holding a book in your hand and going, read this. Look at this book. You see how thick that is? That's a thick ass book, folks. And it's a hell of a read. I got to tell you, it really, really is. One other thing. I got two other things, but I want to talk to you about this. Let's talk about a character named Sicarius. Okay, I want to talk to you about this guy. Sicarius is an interesting character too. I want to read a little bit about this, and then I want to ask you a question that, and I don't know if there's an answer in the book. If there is, I haven't found it yet. But let me just read this little passage. Sicarius glanced to his right. Under the organ pipes, an effigy of Christ on a cross was displayed. Multiple rows of red candles were lit on two separate tables in front of the crucified Son of God. A vase containing white orchids stood at the Savior's feet. Watch over me, please, my Lord. The black nobility king opened his eyes and raised them up to the statue of Ignatius. I want to ask you a question. I'm going to stop right there. Who is the black nobility king?
I have no clue.
I wasn't sure if you knew.
I mean, most of what I wrote was research based, and I'll say to a certain extent factual, and not made up. But some of the stuff I had to make up because it was very difficult to find any information. And so, I made up the bad guys type of thing. But you can probably see elements of that in today's, society, right?
When I read that passage, Dan, I have to tell you, and I'm sorry again, sorry to interrupt you, but when I read that passage, the Black Nobility King, it reminded me so starkly, I will use that word deliberately, it reminded me so starkly of the group called the Knights Templar, because the leader of the Templar in any given region was referred to as the Black King.
Oh, interesting.
I'm sorry, not the Black King, the Red King. For the reason that their garments and excrements here were either, depending on where you were, either a red cassock with a white Templar cross or a white cassock with a red Templar cross, depending on where you were. But the predominant color was always red with the Templars, particularly if you were higher up in the ranks. The higher up you were, the more red you had. And they were called the Red Kings. It's interesting. That's why I asked you, because I never heard of the Black Nobility King.
Well, the idea behind using the term king was in reference to Revelation. In the passage where they're talking about the 12 kings will regain their kingdoms. I said, well, that sounds like a pretty badass group. So why not make them like the kingpins of the whole planet? And so that's where it came from. No, I had no idea that anything was associated with the Templars, but but then even if it was, I wouldn't have used it, Angelo, because for me, the Templar story and the Templar bad guys, if you will, I think that's been so used so much. It's been.
I agree.
I see a book now, and if I pull it out and it starts talking about the Templars, I put the book back. It's just I needed something new and refreshing and a little bit outside of what like this particular genre talks about. And the Templars have been a pretty strong underlying theme through a lot of novels in the last decade. So yeah, I didn't want to go there. I mean, I could have, and I had the research, I had the pile of books, I was ready to do it, and I said, no, I gotta go into another area and find another group, and make them the
I'm glad that you chose the way you did, Dan. Because I think it would have been easy and cheap to use the Templars. I like the fact that you made me question what is the black nobility king. I like that. But again, in reference to the Templars, it's funny that even though you didn't use them, what you did here was very reminiscent of how the Templars carried out business. I'll give you an example. I will make this brief, the man said. The most holy king has determined that your mercenary services will no longer be required. You are to terminate your mission immediately. As such, you will have to seek out another way to return the Father General's good graces and obtain absolution. This decision is final. If that were not enough of a comparison, if you were given a mission under the orders of the Templar King and you did not carry them out or failed to, you didn't get a second chance because punishment was death. They were brutal. Yeah, they were brutal.
You never know, Angelo. Maybe they are the kings. I don't know.
Well, that's what makes a good conspiracy a conspiracy.
Yes.
Amelia, questions for Dan.
Yeah, and the book here, and I know that as you were writing, I guess you were thinking about what they were doing in your head. Have you thought of making this into a movie, or have been approached to make it into a movie?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, we spoke about this previously, but it was written with the idea of making it a script, not through me, but if somebody wanted to pick it up and write a script out of it, I'd say more than 3/4 of the job is done, because a few years back I was studying script writing, right? And I learned a lot from that. Not that I was going to ever write a script, but I learned, a lot about pacing and structure and scene setups and stuff like that. So I definitely used it in the creation of this book because it reads like a movie.
It does.
I've been told in the past that it reads like a movie. So whether it becomes a movie, I don't know. I mean, there's so like, what are the chances? So it's I'll just throw it out there. I'll throw it out into the universe, and I'll let the universe take care of it.
The trailer even plays like a film.
I was ready to have my popcorn ready.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that was intentional as well.
I'll when we get off the air, don't go anywhere, Dan, because I have a connection to somebody. It's not a great connection, but they know the person. And I'll tell you who it is when we get off the air. I would love to send them this book because this person has done these kinds of movies before. And a lot of them, as a matter of fact. Yes. So, Amelia, before we let Dan go, questions, comments, what do you got, kid?
Yes, you also have fitness books as well that you do as well.
Yes, let's get into that.
And as we were telling off the air, a lot of us have lost weight and everything, and I have a lot of loose skin that I have here that how would I go about toning it up now that I've lost all that weight?
You unfortunately, because believe me, my job would be so much easier if it was possible to do it. But there's not much we can do about loose skin apart from a pretty elaborate surgery to have it removed, because you can't tone skin, at least not the way we do with muscles. And even then, we shouldn't even say toning, because toning means a muscle is innervated. So when we say tonus, it means a muscle has nerve activation, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about firming up.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what we're talking about, really. Okay, and if we're talking about firming up, what we're saying really is we want to increase our muscle mass.
Muscle mass.
And I know a lot of women, particularly, look at me and then their eyes roll back and say, "Well, I don't want to be a bodybuilder." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not trying to make you into a bodybuilder. And even if you wanted to be one, I hope you're going to be,
I don't mind.
but you're going to. It's years. It's years of work, and it's an obsession. Okay, you live, you eat, you sleep, you drink, bodybuilding.
And the women are like fanatical about it.
Yes.
I've seen these women a lot, and let me tell you something. They don't. A lot of these women don't work. They live in the gym and they have corporate sponsors that pay their bills.
Yeah.
You know, if you can afford to get a corporate sponsor, more power
well,
to you.
Actually, in this era of influencers, that's a heck of a lot more true than you would think. So there's a driving factor there monetarily.
Oh yeah.
But it's very much in now. It's an in thing. The fitness has come really into its prime now, and now we can see it. It's exploding. You've got countless Instagram accounts or TikTok accounts or whatever pages, YouTube, you name them, with people offering up fitness advice, and it blows my mind to what degree to see how big it's gotten. My only scary thing about that is how many of them are actually qualified to.
Well, I was just about to say to you, Dan, I would thank you for going there, because I was just about to say to you, everybody and his brother now is a fitness expert. Forget about just being a fitness expert. Everybody and their brother's an expert now. Because you can't talk to anybody on social media without being told that you don't know anything and they know everything. Particularly in the field of fitness, which I think is widely oversaturated with incompetent and unqualified people giving horrendous and dangerous advice.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that we can do to stifle them, to shut them down, to get them out?
Don't look.
Yes, keep scrolling.
I mean, you know what? It's so big now. It's a big machine. And I don't think any one individual or group is going to be able to stop this machine now because it's rolling. It's got steam. I would liken it to fighting off a snowstorm with a fly swatter. You ain't going to win. There's just too much coming now that it's the horse has left the barn and the barn has fallen down.
Oh yeah.
That horse ain't coming back. So it's basically do your due diligence. Listen, okay, because you're gonna get a lot of information out on the internet. I'm not saying this is not a blanket comment that it's all bad. Of course not. And in most cases, a lot of those individuals do lead healthy lifestyles in terms of nutrition and whatnot. And they're exercising. So I mean, how can you see something bad out of that? But what I would suggest to people is don't take it at face value. Take the information in and then do your own little research on the side and try and get, corroboration from outside sources that are science backed, before saying, okay, it's the gospel truth. Yeah. Okay. Because I'll tell you, every single fitness expert on the internet right now is trying to be the bringer of truth. To be the guru. But I mean, in a sense, now I'm seeing a lot of repetition. They're all proposing the same exercises. They're giving the same information. I'm thinking, okay, you know what? There's nothing new now.
It's called follow the leader, Dan.
It really is, because the influencers are following the influencers who are following the influencers.
Exactly.
And they're all repeating and regurgitating the same stuff. And I'm saying, well, how do you come out as being different? What are you saying that's different that's really going to have an impact? And when I wrote those books initially, that was my primary question for both of them was, how am I different?
Exactly.
What am I bringing to the table? I mean, if I'm just rehashing the same old damn thing,
absolutely.
Why write it?
Right.
So I had to bring another approach to it. I mean, one of the bigger ones was the method of transmitting the information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is really important because we see a lot of blogs, we see a lot of books, we see a lot of videos and whatnot, but it's a transference of information that has no emotion attached to it, and it's not interesting in a sense. So I decided that I wanted to make it such that my books were based on conversations I've had over 38 years with clients, conversations, real people, real conversations, and I put them all into a story.
Yeah.
So it's not a bland information book.
Oh, sure.
Okay? You're reading a story.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's basically a trainer talking to his clients who want to attain whatever goal they want to attain. So the idea was to make it interesting and to carry it forward and to add a human element to it. Some real touchy-feely stuff to it.
The fact that it's not a monologue, it's a dialogue, goes a long way.
Yeah. And you can make it, it's got heart too, because you can inject some humor into it, which I thought was a lot of fun. And it becomes more of a real world thing. People can identify with the characters because they're based on real conversations. These things are not made up. I have I don't know how many people I've worked with over the years, but I have to thank them all, because much of it, much of those books came from them.
Sure.
I just brought everything together and gelled it. But they were as much a part of it as I was, I think.
Sure.
And a lot of us, I didn't use no lap band or anything like that. None of us did. We did it the natural way, exercise right.
Sure.
And that's what I like about that, because a lot of people you don't want to use the lap band. You want to exercise the right way. You want to make sure you eat correct.
Well, I'll tell you what,
I want him to do that as well.
I have to cut you off, Neil. I'm sorry, but I'm up at 8:00 here. We
gotta have him back for exercise.
Well, then I promise Dan will be back, and I will have him back for you, and we will have. We will not talk about the Satan gene. We'll talk about exercise, health, and nutrition. But I have to tell everyone that this Friday, June 16th, we've got a very special episode of What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. Television and film actor Johnny Whitaker. You remember him from Family Affair and Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer.
Wow.
He will be here Friday to talk to us about his ups and downs, the trials and tribulations of being a child actor, how it almost killed him, and how he is being redeemed now by the same crew of people that almost wanted his head off. But in the meantime, we are going to say goodbye to Dan Eamer, who is one of our favorite authors. He's quickly becoming my favorite author. He really is. Amelia, what else we got coming up?
We got the Savannah Paranormal Group coming up next week.
Yes, we have Savannah Paranormal. We're going to talk about ghosts and spooky sightings and the paranormal and specters and all kinds of weird shit like
sorry
that.
about that.
Talk about paranormal.
There it goes. Boom.
That was a ghost right there.
Right?
That was a ghost right there.
That ghost was right on cue, baby.
That was, oh boy.
Yeah, that'll be on the 19th and the 20th of June.
Well, I'll tell you what, for Dan Eamer. Dan Eamer is the author of The Satan Gene. Get it on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. For Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, I am the Mad Dog, Angelo DeCipio. Join me next time on What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.